I wish I could tell you this is just a wild story somebody made up, but no. It happened to me, on the very land my family has worked for over a century. And if there's one thing I learned from it, it's this. When somebody tries to steal your livelihood, you don't always need to fight with fists or even lawyers right away. Sometimes you just remind them who really holds the power. And in my case, that power was water. I grew up on the Walker farm, 2,000 acres of fields, barns, chicken coops, and a reservoir that my grandfather helped build back in the 40s. I still remember riding with him on the tractor as a kid, him telling me that the soil was more than dirt, it was history, and the water running through our land didn't just grow crops, it kept the whole county alive. Those words always stuck with me. So when this nightmare with the HOA started, those old lessons came rushing back. It was a morning like any other. Sky was clear, a soft breeze carrying the smell of hay, and I was out before sunrise on the tractor, just like Grandpa used to do. I'd barely taken a bite of my breakfast sandwich when my phone started buzzing like a hornet nest. 10 missed. Calls from neighbors, 3 voicemails from my cousin, and 1 email from the HOA with the subject line, "Violation Notice." My stomach tightened. I opened it and nearly spit out my coffee. They were claiming my tractor noise was violating peaceful enjoyment of the community and that my chicken coops produced offensive odors, damaging property values. Their order, shut down farming within 48 hours or face a fine of $200 a day. I laughed out loud, sitting right there on the tractor. $200 a day? For what? Plowing my own land? This had to be a joke. But the next morning, I learned they were dead serious. A white SUV screeched to a stop in my front yard. Out stepped Deborah Williams, the new president of the Oakhaven Estates HOA, crisp white pantsuit, clipboard clutched like a weapon, and 2 board members trailing behind her like bodyguards. "Mr. Walker," she called out, heels stabbing into the dirt like she owned it, "we need to discuss your violations." I crossed my arms. "There's nothing to discuss. Your HOA has no jurisdiction here. This is farmland, always has been." Her smile never touched her eyes. "Actually, according to the county zoning board, your agricultural exemption expired last year, which means your property now falls under HOA standards." That rattled me for a second. My tax bills hadn't changed. My exemption was supposed to be good another 5 years. "That can't be right," I told her. "This farm's been in my family 100 years. No HOA can just swoop in and claim it." Her grin hardened. "Times change. We have standards now." She shoved a cease and desist order into my hands and turned on her heel, and right there I knew she wasn't bluffing. That night I called my cousin Mark, who sat on the town council. He sighed, told me this wasn't random. Deborah had been cozying up to developers for months, rewriting meeting minutes, holding private dinners. "They've been planning this," he warned. "She's after your land." I dug through county records and found it plain as day. My exemption was still valid until 2028. She had lied straight to my face. So I ignored the letters, the fake fines, the petty noise complaints she kept filing with the sheriff. Sheriff Davis, an old high school buddy of mine, even called me up. "Look, man, they're filing petitions every day, trying to brand your farm a public nuisance. I know it's garbage, but they're not stopping." Then I saw them. Men in designer suits walking my east fields with clipboards, snapping photos like they were shopping. I roared up in my truck. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" One turned around, slick hair, expensive shoes. "I'm James Miller, with Westview Development Corporation. We're surveying the land for planning purposes." "Planning what?" I asked. He looked confused. "Construction. According to our paperwork, Westview purchased 1,700 acres from Oakhaven Estates 3 weeks ago." My heart about stopped. "That's impossible. This is my land." He held up official documents, maps stamped by the county, and, at the bottom, my signature. Except I never signed anything. I raced home, ripped open the safe, pulled out the deeds. They were untouched. I called the county recorder. The clerk on the line said, "According to our records, sir, 1,700 acres were transferred to Oak Haven Community Trust 6 weeks ago. You only own 300 now." I stammered, "That's impossible." "Well, the documents have your signature," she replied. "Want me to email you a copy?" When I saw it, my hands shook. The signature was mine, or at least a perfect forgery of it. And parked at the edge of my property, watching me from her leather-seated SUV, was Deborah. She caught my eye, smiled, and waved like it was a neighborhood barbecue. I had less than a month before bulldozers arrived. For a moment, I thought I'd lost everything. Then I remembered something my grandfather had told me as a kid. "Never forget, son, we control the water." Back in 1943, Grandpa signed an agreement letting the county build a reservoir on our land. That reservoir supplies every home in Oak Haven, but agricultural use takes priority. Always has, always will. And the main control valve still sits on my property in my hands. I made 3 calls: my lawyer, the State Water Authority, and a friend at the local newspaper. 2 days later, the faucets in Oak Haven Estates ran dry. My phone rang 17 times before I picked up. "What did you do?" Deborah screamed. I calmly buttered my toast. "Nothing illegal, just prioritizing my farm's water needs per the 1943 agreement." By sundown, the neighborhood was in chaos. Developers were threatening lawsuits, homeowners were livid, and the county had opened a fraud investigation. Within a week, a judge ruled in my favor. My land was restored, Deborah was ousted, and the developers scattered like rats. For the first time in weeks, I slept easy. But if you think that was the end, you don't know HOAs. With Deborah gone, a new president stepped up, Mark Simmons. He wasn't flashy like her. He was sly. His first move? Try to choke off my access road. He petitioned the county to reclassify it as a private residential street, claiming farm traffic was dangerous. My cousin tipped me off, and I marched straight into the zoning office with 70 years of right-of-way agreements. The clerk laughed, said, "They can petition all they want. This road is legally yours forever." That was strike 1. Strike 2 came dressed up as environmental concern. Suddenly, county inspectors were flooded with complaints. Unregulated pesticides, hazardous waste, livestock filth. I knew exactly who was behind it. So I called Lisa Moreno, a state agricultural inspector and family friend. She walked the fields, checked every coop, every shed, every barrel. 2 days later, she filed her report. Walker Farm, 0 violations, full compliance. Then she called the HOA directly and warned them filing false environmental reports could carry criminal charges. Their final shot was almost laughable. They sent me a cease and desist letter claiming my farm was unsightly and violated HOA aesthetics. That's when I stopped playing defense. I filed a lawsuit of my own for harassment, unlawful interference, and damages. I pulled every record of their fraud, handed it to the local paper, and requested a full state audit of their finances. Within a month, Oak Haven HOA was crumbling. Mark resigned. The audit uncovered $50,000 in misallocated funds. The remaining board members were held personally liable. 6 months later, the HOA was dismantled completely. I'll never forget the day the last Oak Haven sign came down. I stood on my porch, fields stretching out golden under the setting sun, and felt a weight lift. They tried everything, lies, forgeries, power plays, but in the end, they destroyed themselves. And here's the funny part. I didn't beat them with brute force. I didn't need to. All I did was hold my ground, remember my roots, and use the leverage my grandfather left. Me. Sometimes the fight for justice isn't about swinging harder. It's about knowing where to stand so your opponent falls on their own. Now I want to throw this to you. Was I right to shut off their water and fight fire with fire? Or should I have stayed on the straight court path from the beginning? Have you ever dealt with a power-drunk HOA or a neighbor who thought they could push you around? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I read every one of them. And believe me, stories like these matter. They remind us that community doesn't mean control and peace doesn't mean surrender. So tell me, if someone tried to take your land, your livelihood, what would you do?